The first scream pierced the pre-dawn darkness at exactly 4:57 a.m., jolting Dr. Nwosu from his laboratory microscope, where he had been examining water crystallization patterns for the past 6 hours. Outside his research facility window, emergency sirens wailed through the streets of Millfield like banshees, announcing apocalypse. Red and blue lights strobed against his lab walls as police cars, fire trucks, and ambulances raced past in endless procession. "Sir, you need to evacuate immediately." Officer Martinez burst through his laboratory door without knocking, her uniform wrinkled from what appeared to be a sleepless night. "The entire downtown water supply has been compromised. We're ordering mandatory evacuations within a 3-mile radius." "Compromised how?" Emeka set down his equipment, confusion creasing his dark features. "I've been monitoring the municipal water quality all week for my purification project. The readings were cleaner than they've been in decades." Martinez avoided his eyes. "Someone reported dangerous toxins in the system. Chemical contamination. Could be fatal if consumed." Through his window, Emeka watched families loading belongings into cars with desperate urgency. Children clutched stuffed animals while parents shouted conflicting directions. Mrs. Patterson from the corner house struggled to carry jugs of water to her sedan, her arthritic hands trembling. The sight twisted something deep in his chest. 3 hours earlier, Karen Whitfield had pressed her manicured finger against the 911 speed dial on her diamond-encrusted phone. Her voice carefully modulated to convey panic without losing control. She sat in her Mercedes in the parking lot of HydroPure Industries, watching the sunrise paint the corporate logo in gold letters across the building's facade. Emergency Services. This is Karen Whitfield, chairwoman of the Citizens Water Safety Committee. She paused, letting authority settle in her tone. "I have credible evidence that Dr. Emeka Nwosu from the Municipal Research Laboratory has introduced dangerous chemical agents into our city's water supply. People could die." The 911 operator's voice crackled through the speaker. "Ma'am, can you confirm your location and provide details about this threat?" "I'm at 1247 Industrial Boulevard. Dr. Nwosu has been conducting unauthorized experiments, and my sources indicate he's contaminated the main water treatment facility. You need to shut down the entire system now before people start getting sick." Karen's reflection in the rearview mirror showed perfectly applied lipstick and cold blue eyes that betrayed no hint of the lies flowing from her mouth. Behind her, HydroPure's bottled water trucks were already moving toward distribution points throughout the city. Back at the laboratory, Emeka gathered his research files with shaking hands, while Officer Martinez waited impatiently. His life's work lay scattered across laboratory benches, water samples from 7 different municipal sources, filtration prototypes that could revolutionize clean water access, and months of data proving his purification system was ready for citywide implementation. "Officer, with respect, I think there's been a mistake." He held up a test tube containing crystal-clear water. "This sample came from the main treatment plant yesterday. Look at these purity readings." He pointed to his computer screen displaying detailed chemical analysis. "The water is cleaner now than it's been since the plant opened in 1987. Martinez glanced at the data, but shook her head. "Sir, I don't understand the science. My orders are clear. Evacuate all personnel from this facility and the surrounding area." "But who reported this contamination? What specific toxins are we supposedly dealing with?" "I can't discuss ongoing investigations. Please gather your essential items and leave the premises immediately." As Emeka packed his laptop and research drives, his phone buzzed with a text from his research partner, Dr. Sarah Chen, who was attending a conference in Denver. "Just saw the news. Millfield water contamination. What's happening? He typed back quickly. Don't know yet. Being evacuated. Someone reported toxins, but my data shows the opposite. Her response came immediately. That makes no sense. Your purification system was working perfectly when I left. Be careful. Something's not right. By 7 a.m., Millfield resembled a disaster zone. Mayor Patricia Vance stood at the emergency command center, her usually perfect silver hair disheveled as she fielded calls from the governor's office, the EPA, and increasingly frantic citizens. News vans lined the streets outside City Hall, reporters shouting questions at anyone in authority. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Vance announced at the hastily called press conference, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding her. As a precautionary measure, we are implementing an immediate boil water advisory for the entire municipal system. Residents should use only bottled water for drinking, cooking, and personal hygiene until further notice. Reporter questions flew like arrows. How many people have been affected? What specific contaminants are we dealing with? Is this an act of terrorism? The mayor raised her hands for silence. We are working with state and federal agencies to determine the source and extent of any contamination. Public safety is our primary concern. In the crowd of reporters, Karen Whitfield watched with satisfaction as her plan unfolded. She had positioned herself as a concerned citizen advocate, speaking to Channel 7 about the reckless experiments being conducted at the municipal laboratory. Dr. Nwosu has been working unsupervised for months, she told the camera, her expression perfectly calibrated for sympathetic concern. Local residents have complained about strange chemical odors coming from the treatment facility. We tried to raise these concerns through proper channels, but no one listened. The reporter nodded gravely. Do you believe this was intentional contamination? I pray not. But we can't rule anything out. The fact remains that a single individual had unrestricted access to our entire water supply. That's a security failure of the highest magnitude. Meanwhile, Emeka had relocated to his apartment 5 miles outside the evacuation zone, setting up a makeshift laboratory on his kitchen table. His landlord, Mr. Kim, knocked on the door carrying bottled water. Dr. Nwosu, I brought extra water from the store. Crazy situation. Huh? Mr. Kim's weathered face showed genuine concern. You think it's really dangerous? Mr. Kim, I've been studying municipal water systems for 15 years. What they're describing doesn't match any contamination pattern I've ever seen. Emeka accepted the water gratefully. Someone has made a serious error, or worse. Worse how? Someone might be deliberately spreading false information. Mr. Kim's eyes widened. You mean like lying about poison? I pray I'm wrong, but the data doesn't support their claims. That afternoon, as Emeka continued analyzing his preserved water samples, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Dr. Patricia Reeves from the EPA regional office. Dr. Nwosu, this is Dr. Reeves with the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm calling regarding the reported contamination in Millfield's water supply. Dr. Reeves, thank you for calling. I've been hoping someone would want to see my actual data. Actually, Dr. Nwosu, I'm calling to inform you that the EPA is opening a formal investigation into your research activities. You're required to surrender all materials related to your work on the municipal water system. Emeka felt the floor shift beneath him. I don't understand. My work has been improving water quality, not harming it. Sir, We have received allegations that you've been conducting unauthorized chemical experiments on public water supplies. These are very serious charges. Dr. Reeves, with respect, who made these allegations? I've documented every aspect of my research. The water quality has improved dramatically since implementing my filtration protocols. I cannot discuss the source of our information, but I strongly advise you to cooperate fully with this investigation. After hanging up, Emeka stared at his reflection in the black phone screen. In 15 years of scientific research, he had never faced accusations like this. His hands trembled slightly as he opened his laptop and began copying his research files to secure cloud storage. The second wave of panic hit Millfield that evening, when local emergency rooms reported a surge in patients claiming water-related illnesses. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, Chief of Emergency Medicine at Millfield General, stood in her crowded waiting room feeling increasingly frustrated. "Doctor, I've been throwing up all morning," complained Mrs. Rodriguez, clutching her stomach dramatically. "It started right after I brushed my teeth with tap water." "Mrs. Rodriguez, your tests show normal hydration levels and no signs of toxicity. The symptoms you're describing are more consistent with stress-induced nausea." "Are you saying I'm imagining this?" "I'm saying your body shows no evidence of chemical poisoning. Sometimes anxiety can cause very real physical symptoms." Dr. Walsh had seen similar patterns during other public health scares, people genuinely experiencing symptoms driven by fear rather than actual contamination. But the sheer volume of patients was overwhelming her staff. Her phone buzzed with a text from the hospital administrator. "CDC wants blood samples from all suspected contamination cases. Federal investigators arriving tomorrow." She typed back, "Most cases appear psychosomatic, but will comply with CDC protocols." The next morning brought Emeka's first direct confrontation with his accusers. He was summoned to City Hall for emergency questioning by a joint task force including EPA officials, state police, and federal agents. The conference room felt arctic, despite the warm autumn weather outside. Agent Susan Bradley, a severe woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled into a tight bun, led the interrogation. "Dr. Nwosu, we need to understand exactly what chemicals you've been introducing into Millfield's water supply." Agent Bradley, "I haven't introduced harmful chemicals into anything. My research focuses on removing contaminants, not adding them." He placed a thick folder of documentation on the table. "These are my complete research logs, dating back 8 months. Agent Williams, a younger man with suspicious eyes, leaned forward. "Dr. Nwosu, we have reports that you've been conducting unsupervised experiments with unknown chemical compounds." "That's absolutely false. Every compound I use is documented, FDA approved for water treatment, and tested extensively before implementation." "Then, how do you explain the mass illness reports we're receiving?" Emeka felt a flash of anger. "What illnesses? I've been monitoring the emergency room reports. Most patients are showing stress-related symptoms, not chemical poisoning." Agent Bradley consulted her notes. "Dr. Nwosu, we have credible sources indicating that you may have been working with, shall we say, unauthorized objectives." "What does that mean?" "It means we're questioning your motivations for tampering with a public water supply." The implication hit Emeka like a physical blow. They weren't just questioning his methods. They were questioning his character, his loyalty, his very identity as an American citizen. He straightened in his chair, drawing on reserves of dignity his grandmother had taught him. "Agent Bradley, I was born in Detroit. I earned my PhD from MIT. I've spent my entire career trying to provide clean water to communities that need it. If you're suggesting I'm some kind of terrorist, you're not just wrong. You're insulting everything I stand for." Agent Williams shifted uncomfortably, but Agent Bradley remained stone-faced. "Dr. Nwosu, we're simply trying to understand the facts." "The facts are in those files. The facts show that Millfield's water is cleaner and safer than it's been in 30 years. The facts show that my purification system works exactly as designed." But even as he defended himself, Emeka could see doubt in their eyes. He recognized the familiar pattern, a black scientist facing powerful white authority figures who had already decided his guilt. After the interrogation, Emeka drove through downtown Millfield and witnessed the devastation his alleged crimes had wrought. Store shelves were stripped bare of bottled water. Long lines snaked around distribution points where the National Guard handed out emergency supplies. Restaurants had closed. Schools remained shuttered. He stopped at Patterson's Corner Market, where old Mrs. Patterson was struggling to carry cases of water to her car. Without thinking, he got out to help. "Oh, Dr. Nwosu." Her face lit up with recognition. "How are you holding up through all this craziness?" "I'm managing Mrs. Patterson. Let me help you with those." As he loaded the water cases, she lowered her voice. "Between you and me, I don't believe a word of what they're saying on the news. My Harold was a chemist for 40 years, and he always said you were the smartest waterman he ever met." Her words brought unexpected tears to his eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Harold used to say, "Watch out for people who profit from problems they create." Makes you wonder who benefits from all this panic. Mrs. Patterson's casual observation sparked a revelation that stopped Emeka cold. Who did benefit from widespread distrust of municipal water? Who gained customers when people stopped trusting public utilities? That night, Emeka began researching Millfield's bottled water market with the same methodical precision he applied to chemical analysis. What he discovered made his blood run cold. HydroPure Industries had seen a 340% increase in local sales since the contamination scare began. Their stock price had jumped 22% in 2 days. Most disturbing of all, Karen Whitfield wasn't just a concerned citizen. She was HydroPure's chief regulatory affairs lobbyist, paid specifically to influence municipal water policy. Emeka's phone buzzed with a call from Dr. Chen in Denver. "I've been digging into the timeline of events. Something strange is happening." "What did you find?" The contamination report came in at 4:57 a.m., but the emergency response was already mobilized by 5:15. That's impossibly fast for a legitimate crisis. "Keep going." More interesting, HydroPure had distribution trucks positioned throughout the city starting at 6 a.m. They had to have been dispatched before the official announcement. Emeka felt pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. "Sarah, can you access the 911 call logs remotely?" "Already working on it. Give me 30 minutes." While he waited, Emeka continued his investigation. Karen Whitfield had a very interesting professional history. She had worked for tobacco companies during their health denial campaigns in the 1990s, then moved to oil companies fighting environmental regulations, and finally landed at HydroPure, just as municipalities across the country were implementing new water purification technologies. "Doctor," Chen called back with explosive information. I accessed the emergency services database. Karen Whitfield called 911 at 4:57 a.m. claiming contamination. But here's the kicker, she specifically mentioned your name and accused you of terrorist activities. She named me directly. Not only that, she provided detailed descriptions of your purification equipment and research schedule. This wasn't a random accusation. This was targeted character assassination. Emeka stared out his apartment window at the empty streets of Millfield. Thousands of people had fled their homes based on Karen Whitfield's lies. Families were spending their savings on bottled water, while perfectly clean municipal water flowed unused through the city's pipes. But proving Karen's deception would require more than circumstantial evidence. He needed scientific proof that the water supply was safe. And he needed to expose her financial motives in a way that couldn't be dismissed or ignored. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Martinez Chen at the State Environmental Laboratory called with preliminary test results from water samples collected throughout the crisis. Dr. Nwosu, I'm calling to inform you that we've completed comprehensive analysis on 47 water samples from various points in the Millfield municipal system. Emeka held his breath, and the water is not only free of contaminants, it's among the purest municipal water we've ever tested. Whatever purification system you implemented is working extraordinarily well. Dr. Martinez Chen, could you put that finding in writing immediately? I may need it for legal purposes. Already done. I'm emailing the full report now. Dr. Nwosu, between us colleagues, someone has perpetrated a massive fraud on your community. Armed with scientific vindication, Emeka called Mayor Vance directly. Mayor, this is Dr. Nwosu. I have state laboratory results proving the water supply is completely safe. Dr. Nwosu, I appreciate your call, but we're in the middle of a federal investigation. Mayor, the federal investigation is based on false information. Someone deliberately lied about water contamination to create a public panic. The line went quiet for a long moment. That's a very serious accusation. It's a serious situation. Mayor, I believe Karen Whitfield fabricated this entire crisis to benefit her employer, HydroPure Industries. She named me specifically in her 911 call, despite having no legitimate reason to know about my research. How do you know what she said in her 911 call? Because I've been investigating who gains from this panic. Mayor, HydroPure's sales have increased 340% since Tuesday. Their trucks were positioned for distribution before the official emergency announcement. This wasn't an accident. Mayor Vance's tone shifted from skeptical to concerned. Dr. Nwosu, if you're right about this, we're dealing with corporate fraud on a massive scale. Mayor, I'm sending you the state lab results right now. The water has never been safer. Every hour we delay lifting the emergency order. HydroPure profits while our citizens suffer. That afternoon brought a dramatic turn of events. Mayor Vance called an emergency press conference, flanked by representatives from the State Environmental Laboratory and the FBI's Corporate Fraud Division. Ladies and gentlemen, after extensive testing by independent laboratories, we can confirm that Millfield's municipal water supply is safe for consumption and meets or exceeds all federal safety standards. Reporters erupted with questions. What about the contamination reports? Were the evacuation orders unnecessary? Who provided the false information? Mayor Vance raised her hand for silence. We are lifting the boil water advisory effective immediately. However, we are also launching a criminal investigation into the source of false information that triggered this crisis. In the back of the press room, Karen Whitfield felt sweat beading on her forehead despite the air conditioning. She had underestimated the thoroughness of independent testing and the persistence of Dr. Nwosu's scientific integrity. Her phone buzzed with a call from HydroPure's CEO, Marcus Sterling. Karen, what the hell is happening down there? The FBI is asking questions about our distribution timeline. Marcus, stay calm. It's just political theater. They can't prove anything. They can't prove what, Karen? Did you actually lie about water contamination? The question hung in the air like poison gas. Karen realized her corporate sponsors were preparing to sacrifice her to protect themselves. Marcus, we discussed the competitive threat posed by municipal purification systems. You approved aggressive countermeasures. I approved lobbying efforts, not criminal fraud, Karen. If you've committed crimes using company resources, you're on your own. As Karen felt her support network dissolving, Emeka was experiencing vindication and exhaustion in equal measure. The state laboratory results had cleared his name, but the emotional toll of being falsely accused of terrorism would linger for months. Doctor, Chen called from Denver with more encouraging news. I've been contacted by water management officials in 12 different cities. They want to implement your purification system based on the Millfield results. That's wonderful, Sarah. But honestly, I'm not sure I have the energy for expansion right now. I understand. But think about the bigger picture. Karen Whitfield tried to destroy your work because it threatens corporate profits. The best revenge is making clean water accessible to millions of people. Her words rekindled Emeka's sense of purpose. This wasn't just about his personal vindication. It was about proving that scientific integrity could triumph over corporate manipulation. The climax of the entire crisis came 5 days later at the State Environmental Protection Summit, where water management officials from across the region had gathered to discuss municipal infrastructure improvements. Karen Whitfield attended as HydroPure's official representative, despite growing legal troubles. The conference hall buzzed with conversation as Dr. Nwosu took the podium to present his purification research. 300 water management professionals, government officials, and corporate representatives filled the auditorium. Ladies and gentlemen, the Millfield crisis has taught us valuable lessons about scientific integrity, corporate responsibility, and the importance of evidence-based policymaking. As Emeka presented his data, showing dramatic improvements in water quality achieved through his purification system, Karen shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Her carefully constructed narrative was crumbling under the weight of scientific evidence. The false contamination reports that triggered this crisis, Emeka continued, demonstrate how misinformation can cause real harm to communities. Thousands of families were displaced. Local businesses lost revenue, and public trust in municipal services was damaged, all based on fabricated claims designed to increase bottled water sales. Murmurs of anger rippled through the audience as the full scope of the deception became clear. During the question period, a reporter from the State Environmental Journal stood up. Dr. Nwosu, can you confirm reports that specific corporate interests were behind the false contamination claims? Before Emeka could answer, FBI Special Agent Rodriguez stepped forward from the back of the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, I can answer that question directly. The room fell silent as Agent Rodriguez walked to the podium. The FBI has concluded its investigation into the Millfield water contamination hoax. We have evidence of deliberate market manipulation designed to damage public confidence in municipal water supplies. Karen felt her heart pounding as Agent Rodriguez continued. Karen Whitfield, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, market manipulation, and filing false emergency reports. As federal agents moved toward her seat, Karen stood on trembling legs. The room erupted in chaos as photographers captured her arrest, marking the end of her attempt to destroy Dr. Nwosu's reputation, and his revolutionary water purification system. "I was protecting public safety," she shouted as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. "Doctor, Nwosu's experiments were dangerous." Agent Rodriguez read her rights, while the audience watched in stunned silence. "Mrs. Whitfield, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As Karen was led away, applause began slowly from the back of the room and built into a thunderous ovation for Dr. Nwosu. Water management officials from across the state stood to recognize not just his scientific achievement, but his courage in exposing corporate fraud. The aftermath of Karen's arrest sent shockwaves through the bottled water industry. Congressional hearings were announced to investigate similar manipulation tactics in other markets. HydroPure Industries faced federal charges and massive civil lawsuits from affected communities. For Emeka, vindication brought both relief and renewed purpose. 2 weeks after the summit, he stood once again in his Millfield laboratory. But this time, he wasn't alone. Engineers from the EPA, representatives from 12 municipal water departments, and a team of graduate students filled the space where he had once worked in isolation. "Dr. Nwosu," said EPA Administrator Janet Thompson, "your purification system represents a breakthrough in municipal water treatment. We're prepared to fund nationwide implementation." Emeka looked out the window at Millfield, where families had returned to their homes and children played in parks once again. Water flowed freely from taps throughout the city, cleaner and safer than it had been in decades. Administrator Thompson, "I accept your offer, but with conditions. Any community that implements this system must commit to transparent scientific monitoring and public accountability. Never again should corporate interests be allowed to manipulate public health information." Dr. Chen, who had returned from Denver to lead the expansion effort, smiled as she reviewed implementation timelines. We're looking at serving 20 million people within 5 years." 20 million people with access to clean water, he corrected gently. "That's what this was always about." As news crews filmed the laboratory's transformation into a national water purification center, Emeka reflected on the lessons learned during the crisis. Scientific truth had ultimately triumphed over corporate deception, but the victory had required courage, persistence, and community support from people like Mrs. Patterson, who believed in evidence over fear. 6 months later, Karen Whitfield stood in federal court wearing an orange jumpsuit, facing Judge Patricia Williams for sentencing. The prosecutor had presented overwhelming evidence of her conspiracy to manipulate water markets through false emergency reports. "Mrs. Whitfield," Judge Williams said, her voice carrying the weight of justice, "your actions caused immeasurable harm to thousands of innocent people. Families were displaced, businesses destroyed, and public trust damaged, all for corporate profit." Karen's defense attorney had argued for leniency, claiming she was merely following corporate directives, but the evidence showed her as the primary architect of the deception. "This court sentences you to 8 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You are also ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution to affected communities." As the gavel fell, Karen's life of corporate privilege and manipulation came to an end. Her arrest had sent a clear message throughout the lobbying industry. Scientific fraud and public endangerment would be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Meanwhile, Dr. Nwosu's purification system had been implemented in 47 cities across 12 states. The technology that Karen had tried to destroy was now providing clean water to over 8 million Americans, with expansion continuing rapidly. On the 1-year anniversary of the crisis, Millfield held its first annual Water Quality Festival. Families gathered in Central Park to celebrate their community's resilience and Dr. Nwosu's scientific breakthrough. Children played in fountains, fed by the same municipal water that had once been falsely declared dangerous. Mayor Vance stood at the festival podium, addressing hundreds of residents who had returned to trust their public water supply. 1 year ago, our community faced its greatest crisis through deception and manipulation. Today, we celebrate not just our recovery, but our commitment to truth over fear, science over profit. As applause echoed through the park, Emeka watched families filling reusable bottles at public fountains. Mrs. Patterson approached him with her grandson, a bright-eyed boy of 8, who had drawn pictures of water molecules for his science project. "Dr. Nwosu," the boy said shyly, "my teacher says you make dirty water clean. Can I be a water scientist too?" Emeka knelt to meet the child's eyes. "You can be anything you want to be. Just remember to always ask questions, always seek the truth, and never let anyone convince you that lies are easier than facts." As the festival continued around them, with music playing and children laughing, Emeka felt a deep sense of completion. The crisis that had threatened to destroy his life and career had ultimately validated his life's work and protected communities across the nation from similar manipulation. The water wars were over, truth had prevailed, and millions of families would have access to clean water for generations to come. In the end, scientific integrity had proven more powerful than corporate greed, and the simple act of providing clean water had become an act of resistance against those who would exploit fear for profit. The fountain sparkled in the afternoon sunlight, each droplet a testament to the power of perseverance and the triumph of truth over deception. Dr. Emeka Nwosu had not just survived Karen Whitfield's attempt to destroy him. He had transformed her attack into an opportunity to serve millions of people with the most essential resource for human life: clean, safe water.